Meanwhile, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania on their way to Rome there to attend tomorrow's funeral of Pope Francis in Vatican City. Before leaving, the president was asked about the state of negotiations on the war in Ukraine, and on the trade war with China. Here's what he had to say.
We have a lot of things going on, and I think in the end we're going to end up with a lot of good deals, including tariff deals and trade deals. We're going to make our country rich, but we're going to try and get out of war so that we can save 5,000 people a week. And that's what my aim is. I want to save 5,000 young men. They happen to be mostly Ukrainian, Russian. 5,000 young Ukrainian and Russian men, and that's a big honor if I can do it. I think we're pretty close.
Let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, wow, what a backdrop. You're in Rome for us ahead of the president's arrival there. Do we know if the president will be meeting with any world leaders also attending the Pope's funeral, possibly to talk about tariffs?
Liz, good to be with you. Yes, here in Rome, and in a couple of hours, President Trump will arrive around 11 p.m. tonight. But it's a really tight window that he will be here in Rome for the funeral of Pope Francis, less than 24 hours. But he has suggested throughout the week that he will do bilateral meetings of sorts with the many foreign leaders that are attending this funeral. And you've seen some of them already say that they want to talk to President Trump. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has told reporters he wants to discuss the ongoing war. Of course, President Trump has had the U.S. really involved in trying to speed up negotiations and peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. And the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has also told reporters that she wants to discuss tariffs with Trump. President Trump, of course, has made the EU a big gripe of his, quote, reciprocal tariffs. But again, all these conversations are going to be happening on the sidelines of this funeral, which is the main reason that President Trump is coming here to Italy.
Leaning in more to tariffs there, Aaron, in his Time magazine interview, Trump also said that he spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping, but the Chinese are denying that there are talks that are ongoing about tariffs. What can you tell us?
Yeah, this has been a dynamic we've seen play out throughout the week, where the U.S. is saying that there are active talks with Chinese officials in regards to trade and tariffs, and Chinese officials have responded saying essentially that that's fake news, that there are no ongoing negotiations between the two big global markets. President Trump, after that Time interview came out, was asked by reporters, when specifically did you talk to President Xi? President Trump responded essentially saying no comment, and a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry said again today, after that Time interview piece came out, that there have been no negotiations yet between the U.S. and China. It seems like we're at where we were a couple weeks ago, where each country is kind of playing chicken with each other, trying to dare each other to make the first call. But so far, it's really unclear on if that has actually happened.
Yeah, we'll send it back to Europe there, Aaron. In that same interview with Time magazine, the president also said that Russian-occupied Crimea will stay part of Russia and not Ukraine. So how does that square with the president's confidence that a peace deal can be reached? I can imagine many European countries are concerned about that, and China also closely watching to see what happens with Crimea.
Yeah, I expect if Ukrainian President Zelensky gets to speak with President Trump tomorrow at this funeral, he will bring that up, that Russian control of Crimea has been a red line for Zelensky continuously throughout these negotiation talks. And you've seen President Trump kind of say that that's one of the concessions, imply that's one of the concessions Ukraine has to give. He also seemed to blame former President Obama for Russia's invasion of Crimea in the first place, but he has stressed wanting to get a deal done as soon as possible. It really seems to be muddled, of course, by his comments about Crimea just now.
I want to pivot for a moment to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Aaron, new developments in the mounting fallout from Signal Gate. Earlier this week, we reported that Hegseth apparently included his wife, brother, and personal attorney in a chat about war plans on that messaging app. Now, sources tell CBS News that the Pentagon actually set up a direct line to Hegseth's office, which allowed him to connect to Signal and then bypass the usual security protocols. So is there any response from the White House on that?
Yeah, they haven't commented on that yet. Again, as throughout this week, where we've seen Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth really take a lot of criticism over his use of the Signal app, sharing potentially sensitive information about strikes in the Middle East. They have only stood behind him, saying they have full confidence in him. But just to talk a little bit more about that direct line, which essentially enabled Secretary Hegseth to use that Signal app on his laptop as well as on his phone. It was done in part through an aide in Hegseth's office, Marine Colonel Ricky Berea, who helped organize this effort as a way to kind of fix some internet connectivity issues, but certainly another sign that Hegseth is relying on the Signal app.
Aaron Navarro, live for us from Rome. Thank you so much, Aaron.